These might be some of the best multi-class builds in Baldur's Gate 3, but they require some very specific setup conditions, but I think that's what makes them fun. We've got a melee build, a hybrid caster, plus a pure damaged ranged god. Let's go! Let me know which one of these builds is your favorite in the comments down below. Also, I've just updated my membership program here on YouTube to include early access to practically every video. So if you like these sort of builds or any of the other content that I do on the channel, consider joining the membership. It costs you literally $1. You get early access to basically every video, plus access to the members only Discord, a bunch of other benefits as well. So if you like what I do here, please consider checking that out. But enough of that, onto the video. Firstly, we're going to talk about the Throwzerker, which is a Berserker Barbarian comboed with a Thief Rogue. Now, there's a very specific reason why we're comboing these two together. As a Berserker Barbarian, which by the way, you're going to get to level 8, you will get the Frenzy instead of your typical Rage. And what you can do with Frenzy is use Enraged Throw, which essentially allows you to throw something as a bonus action, which is, you know, all well and good, that's fun. But what if you had a second bonus action, which is what we're getting from Thief? Now, you want to get Thief to 4 as well, because we do want to get these feats, which is why we're going 8 Berserker Barb and 4 Thief Rogue, because you want to get the Tavern Brawler feat, so you can add your strength modifier twice when you are hitting something with a thrown item, and you also want to buff your strength as much as possible, right, with the ability modifiers, because the more strength you have, then the more damage you'll do overall. And depending on the weapon you're going to be throwing, you could also grab the Polearm Master feat as well, so you can deal damage in that way as well. But essentially the main focus for this whole entire setup is literally you'll start combat, you've got 2 bonus actions initially, so you can Frenzy with one of those bonus actions. You've still got 1 left over for at least 1 Enraged Throw on that initial turn. The benefits with a Raged Throw is 1, because it throws the item that you're using, but also because it has a chance to make the target prone, which then gives your allies advantage on attacking them further. But on top of that, because you've actually got the throw action as well, you'll then be able to do that in the same turn. Now, as a Barbarian, you do get an extra attack, right? So in one turn, if you frenzied, say, the first turn, you can Enrage Throw twice with 2 bonus actions, and you can throw twice because you've got a throw and an extra attack. So that's 4 throws in one turn. Now, on top of that, if you combo this with the legendary trident that you can get at the very start of Act 3, this build is kind of ridiculous. I don't know how else to put it. So this trident that you can get at the start of Act 3 is legendary. Now, it comes with the Zephyr connection, so this weapon will return to your hand when thrown, so you don't have to worry about going to pick it up or any of that nonsense. However, when thrown, the weapon creates an explosion that deals 3 to 12 thunder damage and a 6-meter blast centered radius around it. You also get like additional like movement speed and all this other good stuff from this weapon. And then, you know, because we're buffing all of our throwing damage with all of these different ways, you can just add more gear that adds more damage, like the Rig of Flinging to add a 1d4 damage to throwing, the Caustic Band that adds 2 flat acid damage, and then the Helldust Gloves that also add 1d4 fire damage. So you're getting all of these additional damage on top of what you're already doing, plus this spear or trident makes it an AoE, and you can throw 4 times in one turn. So yeah, there's not much else to say really. Like, it's kind of nuts the amount of damage that you can do. And like, to be honest, I don't really like throwing builds because of, in a way, like this reason, they can get very OP and it feels a little bit like a meme in a way, but they are very fun if you enjoy this style of playthrough, just to be able to throw stuff all the time. I mean, you can even throw enemies and all sorts as well, but just throwing this trident will absolutely succeed in Act 3, like there's no question about it. The one thing to be aware of with this trident though is that you can actually hit your allies, because it will hit anything within that 6-meter like radius. So just like be careful not to kill your own allies, but if they get hit with it, it is their own fault. All right, moving on to the Eldrich Tank. Now this goes perfectly with the Throwzerker because they avoid damage to such a high degree anyway, but the reason the Eldrich Tank is a bit unique because this is a really tanky combo, one of the best tanky combos in the game, and we're using the Eldritch Knight because it's one of the only intelligent spellcasting classes, just like the Wizard is, so we're combining these two for that reason. Combining the Eldritch Knight Fighter and a Wizard together really help with one of the Wizard's weakest parts, which is their squishiness, as well as the Eldritch Knight's weakest element, which is a limited pool of spells. Now, what you can do with a certain section of spells is make them kind of immune to damage in a regard, and this is really one of the best tank options in the game. Even though you lose out on the 3rd extra attack from the fighter, it's still an exceptional tank setup if you just want to avoid damage and still dish out a fair amount in your own regard. Now, what really makes this sing is the shield spell. Now, this is a reaction spell, so you won't cast this yourself. So you want to make sure you're saving your reaction to do this. And essentially what happens with this is anytime that you are attacked, you can then avoid damage by this because you can increase your AC by 5, right? And because it's a reaction, you can see what they rolled. And then if it's not actually going to pass that check, you can just like don't react, or if it is, then you can react to avoid that damage. On top of that, the Abjuration School Wizard gives you access to Arcane Ward. So each time you cast an Abjuration spell, which is Shield by the way, and a couple of others, the intensity of the ward increases by the amount of the spell's level, up to a maximum of 2 times your wizard level. But each time you take damage, the ward blocks an amount of damage equal to its intensity, and the intensity decreases by 1. So essentially here, if something does get through your shield, like you're attacked too many times, you don't have reactions, whatever, as long as you've been casting Abjuration spells, you've got Arcane Ward, the amount of damage you'll take is less anyway. And then there are other ways to reduce your damage via certain gear and other buffs and debuffs like Mirror Image, so your AC is higher, that sort of stuff. And then at level 6, as the Abjuration Wizard as well, you get the Projected Ward, so you can then use it on your allies as well, not just yourself, so you can protect them in that way. So this is just a great like general tank setup, right? Now, you've got access to a bunch of spells, and I would really focus on the melee spells here, you know, like your Shocking Grasps and your Burning Hands, those sort of things, because this is really like a melee battle mage sort of a setup, but you've got that real tank potential. And you want to be careful here as well just about your overall armor class. Like when I put this build originally together, I put my armor class like as high as possible, right, with, you know, just maxing out using whatever shield and like heavy armor, etc., because we're a fighter, we've got access to that. But you won't get attacked as much because your armor class is going to be so high, so the enemy AI will often target other things, because it's like your armor class is like what, 24 or something, so like why attack you when they can attack, say, you know, the last build we're going to talk about, the Fire Demon, which has like a 16 armor class, right? So you want to sort of find that balance between your overall armor class so that things are actually attacking you, so you can trigger these effects, because you can take a hit as this Eldrich Tank, right? You've also got access to Second Wind, so you can even heal yourself via the fighter ability as well, and you've got Action Surge to get the second action. Plenty of things that really come together with this kit, but it's a fantastic build if you wanted to play this sort of a setup. Really good for like a Lazil if you've got Lazil in your party or something like that. The last build here is the Fire Demon. This is mostly a Draconic Sorcerer, but we're dipping into an Evocation Wizard because of one specific thing. So the main setup here is you'll be a level 10 Draconic Sorcerer. You're going Draconic here because you get the additional benefits to one specific like damage type, and we're focusing on fire here. So at level 6 of the Draconic Sorcerer, you get access to the Elemental Affinity, so you get additional damage based on your Charisma modifier to every spell you cast of the same type as your Bloodline, which are obviously focusing on fire here. So you obviously want to be grabbing all of the fire spells, and probably around that level 6 mark, you want to have this dip into Evocation, and we only want 2 levels of Wizard Evocation so you can actually get that subclass, because the main focus here is just to get supple spells, because really this will then prevent you from hitting your allies with the massive fire explosions from, say, Firebolt, Wall of Fire, that sort of a thing, which just alleviates the biggest downfall of this sort of big explosion fire-based setup here, because you won't hit your allies, right? So you can then have classes like the Eldrich Tank and anything in melee range, and then drop these massive fire spells and avoid the effect of actually hitting them, which can get kind of frustrating. You want to make sure you grab the Elemental Adept feat for fire as well. So essentially what this will do, so your fire spells ignore resistance to fire, right? When you hit things that have resistance to it. If they are immune to fire, it won't actually remove that, but if they're resistant to it, it will remove that resistance. And it also prevents you from rolling a 1. So on top of all the additional benefits you get as a, you know, fire specific Draconic Fire Sorcerer, you then have that lower chance of rolling lower rounds of damage because you won't roll a 1. And you've got access to so many great fire spells in Baldurs Gate 3 too, right? Like you've got the Firebolt, you've got Burning Hands, you've got Scorching Ray, you've got Wall of Fire, and then you've got all of these fantastic spells that you can also then combine with the wizard spell Grease. Now when you put Grease on the ground, you can actually light this and create a little fire explosion, which then creates a hazard on the ground, so when enemies walk across it, they take fire damage. Now this is a wizard spell, so because we are dipping into wizard, we then get access to Grease in that way, and because we're a sorcerer, you can use Quickened Spell to cast both of these on the one turn. So you can cast Quickened Spell and then use Grease as a bonus action, potion, put that grease on the ground, and then cast fire spell. Like, you don't even have to hit the ground specifically, you can hit a target because it will alight them and then alight that grease themselves. So you've got that benefit there as well as those additional effects for this build. The last thing I'll say about this build is make sure you have some sort of fire resistance. If you start as a tiefling, you get that just ingrained in you via your race, but if you go draconic sorcery, which we already have anyway, you will get fire resistance at level 6 because we have gone that fire setup. So just make sure that you either are getting that, you know, thinking about not standing in your own fire until you get to level 6 if you haven't gone a tiefling, or just, you know, running around like a maniac if you're a tiefling, because you can do that anyway. But let me know your thoughts on these builds in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is NorZZa, and I hope you have a great day.